to combat our partner trying to come up into something that resembles the dogfight. If not the dogfight, we're going to work into the body lock passing again, okay? So the idea here is I don't want to concede a deep underhook. It's okay if I give up the underhook initially, but I want to try to prevent him from getting it to the far hip. If his underhook operates on the near hip, generally it doesn't function in the same way. It's not strong. He can't build up off of it. He's forced to try to work underneath or elect into like a different style of building. So when we're here and my partner has the knee shield, if I'm operating below my partner's bottom knee, I'm getting pushed off at a distance. That makes it more conducive towards him fighting for that underhook. If when I build into this position, I advance above the knee, I can start to adjust my angle. I can play a little bit lower. I can work into some different options. But by surpassing his bottom knee, I'm putting him in much more danger of being passed. Then it becomes, how do I get perpendicular? How do I advance towards a crossface and get his two shoulders to the mat? Generally speaking, with top position and half guard. So what I would like to see from you guys is operating in the same function we did last week. When we come down into this position, the prerequisite is that I have a hand on the hip, my forearm is against the inside of my partner's thigh, and my shoulders collapsing forward towards my hand. This allows me to start to play up onto my foot and control this knee if I need to, which we're not going to talk about today, but it also gives me an angle where as soon as he starts to build up, I have the ability to start to bring my hands together if I need to, and that's what we're going to work into next week, okay? But by coming in here to this position, when my partner starts to play, generally he's going to be playing over the top, like he's going to be trying to get his knee shield back in front of my shoulder, my bicep. This is always going to give me some capacity to start to push his hip, and if I were to take my leg off, I can start to bring the hips up. So if I wanted to try to work back in over under passing, this is where we would do it from, okay? The idea here right now, however, is going to be that my partner is working, generally speaking, to try to get from this position into an underhook. So if he sees that there's a gap between my elbow and my ribs, he's fighting to this position right here. If I let my arm drape over his back, I get collapsed, he works through to his dog fight. But by having my hand on the hip, can you go back to the shoulder really quick? When he goes to build up, it's a very simple task to simply open my thumb away from my index finger, and as he's coming forward, he's progressing into that post. So we go from here, he goes to push and build up. My hand now meets the underside of the armpit here, and if you notice, because my arm wasn't flared above his leg, my elbow tucks, okay? This alone isn't enough to force him back to the mat. He can still progress, like Jonathan, for example, has long arms, he can still progress to my far hip. So when I'm here, the next thing that I need to try to do is drape my head facing towards his legs on an angle towards his elbow. This allows me to kill the underhook. So his underhook immediately went from almost to the far hip to the near hip. Okay, this puts me really, really low. It puts my shoulder and my chest on the underside of his chest here as well. So now my left hand is gonna come through and grab towards the lat. I would like to connect my two hands, but I first want to bring him to me. I don't want to drive in because it'll put me past his midline. So from right here, I pull Jonathan. As I pull Jonathan, I begin to slide my two hands through. If my bottom hand here stays palm up towards his back, my connection isn't going to be incredibly uncomfortable for him, but it also alleviates a lot of the tension from my own wrist and hand. Best case scenario, I come here wrist to wrist. I myself have really short arms. I find myself having to either come gable grip, or what's most common for me is 10 finger. But from this 10 finger grip, if my bottom hand is palm down towards the mat, it creates like a higher plane, it's more uncomfortable for him. So as I drive through, I'm pushing with my left shoulder, my hands hit first. As my hands hit, I continue to drive through towards my forehead. But what you'll see is my legs, my lower legs, my feet, shift from being directly underneath me to rotating the same way that you guys have been walking for some of the previous passing options, okay? So that now, as my forehead hits the mat, my 2 feet are facing towards the right side, which gives me the ability to build into my tripod and walk, even if it's not necessarily in a series of heel-toe motions, in the same direction. So my right foot is working towards the tailbone. As my right foot comes towards the tailbone, you'll see that my knee starts to slip to the front side of his quad. Because my left elbow is high, I have the ability to bring my left knee to my left elbow, and then from this angle, I can windshield wiper over to weave, and the series of motions to kind of kip forward will allow me to free both knees. When both knees are free, my head is on the wrong side, but it becomes very difficult for him to turn back into me and post me or drive me off my post because my head here is really stable, okay? The last thing I want to try to do is rotate my 2 feet to the same side here and then use my foot in dorsiflex to push and take his 2 legs to face the same direction. Now, as my knee comes down, my foot will tuck and hide, and this gives me a better capacity to rotate my head to the opposite side. So even though his weight is trapping my 2 hands, I've killed his underhook. It's trapped to the side of his body. Very, very hard for him to turn away. And when he goes to turn into me and push, I can be incredibly strong to control the hips. I'm going to be able to dominate that fight until I go and choose to advance my hand up. So don't be in a hurry to let go of the body lock. Once you pass to that side, you still have control even though your hands feel trapped. Okay, so here again, when you guys are working, like I said, prerequisites, advance the left leg above the angle of his knee, start with the hand on the hip and the arm bent. So when he goes to fight into his underhook, I block like a V post, my elbow can't be on top, has to be underneath, and then I'm lowering my level to reach deep to the lat, okay? Other thing that I'm doing, but you don't necessarily have to think about it if you have this hand in the right position, is draping my head over the angle of the elbow to kill the underhook. But from this position here, like I said, don't drive through. You'll be too far past the midline. So for example, if I come here, he can knee lever and immediately come to the top. So when I come into this position, I'm pulling him first towards me and then I'm driving down. When I drive down on this angle, my forehead post, my 2 feet swisher to the same side, walk, walk, walk. Once I feel the knee coming close to the front side here, I advance my left knee up. This puts me at the right length to take my instep, free my 2 legs. Okay, from double butterfly hooks here, I windshield wiper, the foot latches behind the knee and extends. This allows me to drop the knee, pivot on the knee, and advance my head to the opposite side. I don't want a gap here. I want to try to shoot my knee forward and tuck my foot so that he has an inability to turn away. And when he comes to turn in, I'm strong with my body lock. I can maintain control above the hip. Okay, does that make sense for everybody? All right, guys, hands up on 2. One more option. It's off of everything being the same. The only difference is the response that I get from my partner dictates that I need to come to a slightly different angle to complete the pass. So the idea here, and we'll just go ahead and start from this point now, is I've come to my body lock here. So I have an underhook on my left side. I've progressed through towards my right side, and in doing so, I came up and I was able to free my knee, but in starting to free my knee, my partner turns over completely their hips to the same side here, and I end up in like a 3/4 mount. Okay, when I end up in this situation, because of the positioning of my right arm being so low, it's very, very hard for me to try to retract my right foot out without giving up position to him. Because I don't want to concede anything, when I come up here, if I bring my knee towards my elbow, or even if I don't, by trying to bring my foot back, I actually put myself on an off angle here. I off balance myself, and I put myself where he can bump me past my head post. Okay, so that's problematic. So when I get this response from him and I find that my knee is free but my foot is trapped in this position right here, I don't want to try to windshield wiper. This isn't the solution. Instead, what I want to do is maintain my post on my head, tripod, and then cut my knee over the top. When I cut my knee over the top, now I have an ability to adjust my head post, but I can push with my knee and my shin, keeping my foot flexed and dropping my hips to the mat. As I do this, I point my right foot. This takes my foot out. Now I windshield wiper back and I adjust my head position. You end up in the same passing scenario. Okay, so once more here, only thing different really is his response. So when I come up on this angle here, I drive through, I get to this point. His hips turn over. I elect to drive off with the left foot, tripod, cut my knee over, advance my head a little bit further up, push, pull, and then windshield wiper and advance the head back to the same side. Okay, so you can do either option now based off of what response your partner gives you. Make sense for everybody? All right, hands up on 2.